everyone, my name is Nitan Avivi, and today I want to talk to you about Refractor Enigma. I want to be clear that while I'm going to share my deck list in this video, this is meant to be much more of a general guide to the deck. How does it play, what are our key value lines, etc. Not so much a specific 80 cards that you should play yourself. However, feel free to copy my deck list, which I will include in the description, and go over in this video and try this out in your own armory. So first thing we need to do when we're talking about Refractor is actually read what Refractor does. So let's read Refractor. Refractor says your Illusionist auras have 5 base power and can attack by pitching 2 resources. The biggest difference between that and Cosmo is on the one side we lose Go Again. We don't get Go Again if we have +1 counters in our auras. On the other side, we usually get a lot more damage out of these auras, especially Spectral Shields. Rage Spectre actually loses a little bit of power when we play Refractor. Rage Spectre is a pretty bad card in Refractor Enigma. But for the most part, we're going to focus on attacking with Spectral Shields. This means we can pitch 1 card to deal 5 damage, which is decent. This is the same numbers that Florian uses to win the end game, but that's not really what we're focusing on in this deck. Instead, we use the fact that Enigma has this bit of hero text that says the first Spectral Shield attack costs 1 less. This means that even though it costs 2 to attack based on Refractor, it only costs 1 to attack with the Spectral Shield, which means we can pay for it with Tunic. So if we have Tunic up, we pitch a Chi, we use Tunic to pay for the attack, we deal 6 damage, 5 base from Refractor, +1, thanks to that +1 power counter that Enigma makes. And we also have 1 ward on the back end for a total of 7 value. 1 card 7. That's very, very good. Every time we have Tunic up, we try to go for that play. In fact, we try to not attack with any other auras, usually, when we're playing Refractor. So, big question, is it worth it to give up the Go Again we have with Cosmo to focus on those plays? So, one thing I think is very important to mention is it's just a really low deck building cost to play Refractor. Refractor itself is just 1 card out of your 80. And on top of that, we also do need to make a couple side grades. I think there's other things that the rest of the deck needs to make up for if we want to play Refractor. But all of those cards are totally reasonable cards to run, even if we are just playing Cosmo. We do also play Cosmo in the sideboard for the matchups where that plan is better. We'll get into that later. I think the biggest upside of Refractor is we don't have to rely on Miragai. I lost a lot of games with Cosmo because I just didn't find Miragai at the right time, or I drew Miragai, but I really needed it as my pitch card. Miragai is a no block. It's hard to protect it. Flicker Arc kills it outright, assuming you don't play AB2 into Aurora, which I don't play AB2 into Aurora. Flick Knives just kills it outright, unless we have, like, Calming Breeze. Miragai just can be very hard to get the full value out of, very hard to protect and attack with again. Instead of that, we focus on just having Spectral Shields, which will always get their full ward value because they have just 1 ward. We can make them a lot more often over the course of the game, thanks to how many Chi we play. And the efficient plays we get to do with Refractor are plays we make with 1 to 2 card hands. This means we can use the rest of our hand to block. We have a longer game thanks to that. We get more Tunic activations thanks to that, which, as we talked about in the last slide, are very efficient. So it's just really a big change in the overall strategy of what Enigma is doing. We don't focus on developing a big board because really we're only attacking with 1 aura anyway. They don't have Go Again. And instead of that, we protect ourselves a lot more and take it to the long game. Now, something very powerful that Enigma usually does is it forces the opponent to attack you. You play out this Miragai, the opponent really needs to kill it because if not, assuming you have Tunic counter up, that's just a 0 card 8 damage. If you don't have Tunic up, it's a 1 card 8 damage, and you can still spend the rest of your hand to do stuff. Opponent really needs to attack you. Big question with Refractor is, do we lose the ability to do that if we don't have Go Again on our auras? And the answer is sort of. At the end of the day, the opponent is going to want to use their hand to do something. If it's not to defend against your attack, it's to attack you back. If they're just defending against your attack, you still get 6 to 8 value, just attacking back with that aura. We also play a lot of go again attacks, so we can use the rest of our hand efficiently, hopefully, although we're still much worse at that than with Cosmo. So if the opponent blocks us, we usually still get decent value on the crackback. If the opponent does attack us, if we manage to protect our Spectral Shield, we can use Tunic to attack with it back, usually for 6 to 8 value, which means so long as we blocked at least semi-efficiently with the rest of our hand, we can get 13 to 18 value turn cycles. Again, you can still do this with Mirror Guy in the normal builds of Enigma, but the fact that you can do this with any chi, which is a lot easier to set up, it's just that one chi card that we need to set it up, means that we still put that pressure on our opponent, we still get really high value turn cycles, even if they're more defensively focused value, which I think is the way to go in a lot of the matchups in the current meta. So let's go over some of the key value lines, starting it off easy just with our very good 2-card hands, which are Spectral Manifestations and Phantasmaclasm. Phantasmaclasm does the same thing that it does in regular Enigma. It's a 2-card 9, a little bit of disruption, does have that fail case of they draw exactly the popper off the top, which really sucks when it happens. Definitely lost a couple games to that happening, but still really, really good card. Always a good turn cycle when you can play out Phantasmaclasm. Spectral Manifestations cost 2, and then cost 1 to attack with the Spectral Shield, thanks to Enigma's hero ability, which means the resources work out perfectly. We pitch a blue, we attack for 8, we have 1 ward on the back end, and we put on that pressure of you have to attack me back in order to stop me from getting 8 value in the following turn, especially if I have Tunic up. In general, I would play Spectral Manifestations out over playing Phantasmaclasm out. Not only does Phantasmaclasm block 3, it has that fail state of they draw the popper off the top, and it doesn't put that pressure for next turn of they have to attack us or we do it again. So in general, I would play Spectral Manifestations over Phantasmaclasm, but both are very good 2-card hands. Now, if we have Chi, the world is our oyster. It's very important to have these go again enablers, especially in Refractor. In Cosmo, if you have a Transcend enabler that doesn't have go again, you're just missing out on 2 damage, which isn't nothing, but you know, we can definitely make up for it by doing something else powerful with our hand, or maybe it's just worth it for that first Transcend. With Refractor, it's 6 damage that we're giving up if we don't get to attack with the Spectral Shield the same turn that we make it. Spectral Prowler is, in my opinion, the best Transcend enabler in the deck. With Tunic, Prowler plus a Chi is a 2-card 9, which is, you know, the same numbers as Phantasmaclasm. Very happy with that. Blue Spears, we pitch a blue, we play Blue Spears, make that Spectral attack with that. That's a 3-card 10, which is the same numbers as Red Thunderquake. Guardian players be jealous. Levels is even better, because not only do we get go again, we get to pick either draw a card or +2. I do think you're forced to pick +2 more often in this deck than you do with Cosmo Enigma, because it's harder to spend your big hands. But still, that's already 2 value above what Spears is getting you. Another thing to note with Spears is that with Phantasmal Footsteps, we can use that 1 extra resource we have. We pay 1 resource for Spears, 1 resource to attack with a Spectral. We have that 3rd resource left over. We can use that 3rd resource to play for Footsteps. Our turn is not over if they pop our Blue Spears. With Prowler, our turn might be over if they pop Prowler, because if we were counting on Tunic to attack with a Spectral, we do not have that extra card to still pay for Footsteps. Now, if we get to hold on to our board state, it is really, really high value. If we have to pitch a card to attack with a Spectral that has a +1 counter thanks to Enigma, that's a 1-card 6. Better than any Guardian could do, better than Florian's 1-card hand. If we have Tunic up, it's a 0-card 6, or a 0-card 8, or a 0-card 9, depending on how big that Spectral is. Astral Etchings is probably the best extender in the deck. Lets us have this Spectral Shield do even more damage in following turns. That's one of the big punishes we have for opponents just trying to block us out and outlast us. Either way, we get really good value whenever we hold on to our board state, just like with regular Enigma, which again means the opponent does have to try and pressure us to get rid of our board. Other than those key lines, the rest of the deck is basically just regular Enigma. All of the things you could do with regular Enigma, you can still do with this deck. All of the good lines are still good in this deck. We still play CNC, stuff like that, as we'll see in a second. But I want to focus first on the things that Refractor does that are special to Refractor. And now let's get into the deck itself. So start with the equipment. Again, Tunic is the core of the deck. Tunic gives us these super above rate plays. I think I already talked about that enough. No reason to repeat myself. Traverse is very good, obviously, even though we don't play Mirror Guy. Usually in Enigma, you use Traverse to have your big Mirror Guy play. So if we're not using Mirror Guy, if Mirror Guy isn't good with Refractor, what are we using Traverse for? In my opinion, two main things. One of them is to get that 1 card 7 whenever Tunic is up. If you're ever forced to block with your whole hand in the hat, it's very nice to be able to hit back for 6, have that 1 word on the back end. Again, you just need Tunic up. Gives us a total of 9 value out of the hat. 2 block plus 6 damage plus 1 word. 9 value out of the hat. Cosmic Awakening is the other thing I use the hat for. We get basically plus 5 damage on Cosmic Awakening. We get to bump it up from 15 to 20. We get the 2 block from the hat, and we get 3 block from this extra card in our hand that we didn't have to pitch into Cosmic Awakening. So I count that as a total of 10 value. It's also important that Cosmic Awakening is like that burst of damage, which helps us close that life total when the opponent's just trying to block us in the late game. Really helps us close games. So I very often am going to save Traverse the Universe to the very late game to be able to combo it with Cosmic Awakening. Calming Gesture is really good. I think I don't want to play any other gloves because of how good it is in every matchup. With the blue, it's a 1 card 6. We get that 5 damage from the Spectral. Doesn't have any counters when it's created off of Calming Gesture. And we get that 1 ward on the back end. Also really good with Astral Etchings. That's a thing most Enigma players should be familiar with. You make the Spectral, you're able to play Astral Etchings. Great. Last thing is Quick Dodge Flexors. Definitely good, definitely powerful, hard to use. I'm still struggling to find the right spots to use it. I think that's just a thing that takes practice, and I will get better at over time, and so will you. But right now, I'm not feeling too confident with my Quick Dodge Flexors play. I still think it's the right choice for the deck. As far as sideboard equipment, we do play Cosmo in the sideboard. We need it for certain matchups. We need it for Wizards, Illusionists, Florian. I'm a little afraid of getting Rune Chant stacked by Florian if I'm playing Refractor, so I play Cosmo into Florian. Guardians, I don't really know what the right plan is. Honestly, it probably doesn't matter too much because the matchup is quite good. I think probably you're playing Refractor into Victor, if nothing else. And then against the other Guardians, you can probably go either way and it's fine. I have 2 more pieces of AB. Calming Gesture itself has 1 AB, which is very nice to just have 1 AB main deck. And then I will also play the hat against Acilio because of how good Quick Dodge Flexors is into Acilio. I will also play the boots into Verdance and Florian. The reason we play the boots into Florian is not because he has any 2 arcane bursts. I mean, he does with Tree, but that's not really why we do it. The reason we play 2 NB into Florian is so we can pop the gloves to make that Spectral to have big plays with Astral Etchings. The footsteps are mainly here to protect us against poppers. Again, very nice with blue spears to be able to pay that resource and still get that 6 damage from the Spectral. It's fine into Ira. Footsteps is fine into Ira to block that first Kadachi. But again, mainly it's for the poppers. Okay, let's get into the cards and deck. Chain Enders. I call these Chain Enders. They're not really Chain Enders. There's not really a whole combat chain we're doing, and then we finish with these guys. This is just what you use your 1 action point on. We already talked about Phantasmaclasm. We already talked about Spectral Manifestations. Those are our main 2 card plays. Worth noting that Spectral Manifestation does say go again on it, but It doesn't really have Go Again because the spectral that it makes doesn't have Go Again when we're playing Refractor, so I still consider it a finisher. Miraging Metamorph is a 1-card 7 with Tunic, just like a Chi is. Again, one of the great things to use our Tunic resource on, gives us very above rate turns. And then we just play a few 2-for-6s. Obviously, CNC is really good, always has been. And then Weakest Link, I think, is the best 2-for-6 against Aurora. 2-for-6s in general are just pretty versatile. They are Disruption against aggro. They're Poppers versus Prism. They combo very nicely in our resource curve with Spears of Surreality or with Levels of Alignment. Might be correct to play more. Honestly, might be correct to play less because of how good these other 2-card plays are, because of how often I'd rather spend my action point on Spectral Manifestation or on Phantasmaclasm. I'm really not sure what the right amount is. This is one of the things I was talking about when I was saying that don't take this 80 to be the perfect 80. Okay, extenders. We really need extenders in Refractor. The auras themselves don't have Go Again, so we need Go Again out of our cards and deck. This is one of the things I was talking about when I was talking about side grades. Personally, I really like Spears of Surreality. I've even considered playing the yellows in this deck. Scar for Scar is the other option, but Spears blocks 3, so that's my preference. E-Strike, again, has Go Again. E-Strike, a card, and then Tunic resource, if your Spectral Shield survives, is a great way to be able to spend more cards to actually deal damage. And then we already talked about levels, we already talked about Blue Spears, already talked about Spectral Prowler. Red Spears does everything Blue Spears does, except it does +2 damage, although it doesn't enable Transcend. So second cycle, Red Spears becomes a lot better. They're also probably lower on Poppers. But first cycle, Blue Spears is very important to actually turn those Chis into cheese. Okay, cheese. I play 7 Chi cards. I play all of them except for a grain that tips the scale, the one that gives +1, and the Sacred Art, which is less than most lists. I think most lists definitely play the Sacred Art and oftentimes also play a grain that tips the scale. In my opinion, Chi is worse with Refractor. No blocks become worse. We can't really use our whole hand to block and then use Tunic to attack back if one of the cards in our hand doesn't block. So I think no blocks are much worse in Refractor. Having multiple Spectrals is much worse in Refractor, so having that many Chis is not as good. We can't attack with multiple Spectrals. We can only ever attack with one. Path Will Traveled specifically becomes much better with the lack of Go Again. There's some very nice value lines you can do, one of which I'll talk about in a second. Either way, Chi is obviously very important for any Mystic Hero. These are the ones that I decide to play. You can play with that a little more, a little less, but I'm pretty confident that 7 is, if not the right number, almost the right number. Okay, and then we just have the rest of our blues. Cosmic Awakening, I mentioned before. I think Cosmic Awakening probably wins me about 1 in 4 games. Very important to close out the game, especially with the round timer being an issue. The games do go long with Refractor because you don't have that snowball ability of just making a board that does like 10 every turn, then 12 every turn, building up over and over. Because we can't close out games in this way, because the things we're focusing on are just 1-card 6s, 0-card 6s, we're always giving the opponent the option to block, and the game drags out. So you need something like Cosmic Awakening to close it out. Enigma Chimera combos very nicely with Path Will Traveled specifically. Pay 2 for Enigma Chimera, give it Go Again with Path Will Traveled, make the Spectral, pay 1 to attack with the Spectral. Since the Spectral is 7 value, that's a total of 13 value out of 3 cards. Very, very powerful. Also, Enigma Chimera just as a 2-card 6 is great. Nothing to complain about here. I think this is a very good card. As mentioned before, Rage Spectre is much worse with Refractor. Not only does it attack for 1 less, it attacks for 5 instead of 6. It costs 1 more to attack with. So it costs 4 resources to play it and attack with it. Not a good card. It's playable. I have actually cast Rage Spectre when I'm playing Refractor, just because I didn't have anything better to do with my hand. but it's definitely worse. The fact that it's still pretty good with Cosmo, and we do play Cosmo in the sideboard, is enough for me to keep it in the deck. But you're definitely blocking with it 90% of the time with Refractor. The rest of these cards are pretty whatever. You can play different blue 3 blocks. This is what I decided on. I think Warmongers is becoming sort of bad in the current meta. I'm going to experiment with playing just 1 copy or maybe 0 copies. Sift has been surprisingly good for me. But really you can play whatever. You can play Essence of Ancestry Mind. I played that for a while. That card's decent. Really doesn't matter too much. This is season to taste. With these 3 blocks, with these blues, we are up to 48 cards main deck, 30 of which are blues, and we need to bring in 12 cards from my sideboard. So let's look at the sideboard. This deck basically has 2 sideboard plans. One of them is defense. When we are playing defense, we have these 8 0-cost 4-block defense reactions. I think these are very good into Aurora, very good into the Assassins. It gets a little bit iffy when you're playing this many into CNC specifically. A lot of times when I'm blocking, I think like, okay, if CNC is the follow-up, am I still able to block it? And if not, I might block inefficiently with these 0/4/4s early in the chain. Essence of Ancestry Body has been a recent addition to this deck. It seems very good. We play this out. It doesn't have Go Again. It does cost a reaction point. We play this out. It wards 2 on the first attack, and then it prevents all the damage from the next red thing, whatever that thing might be, usually an attack. So against Aurora, against Syndra, against Slippy, I think this is going to be a 1-card 5 or 6 very often, without any setup, with us blocking with the rest of our hand. Still pretty inflexible. Doesn't work in bigger hands at all. Doesn't work if they don't attack us. But it also blocks 3. So if we have something better to do with our hand, we can always do that, something better. Last thing is put in context. It's a defense reaction that blocks 3. That's blue. That's the first time we've seen something like that. Excellent Transcend Enabler. Obviously very, very good with a drop in the ocean to enable that specifically. Not good into Aurora. Into Aurora, it only blocks the sword and second strike. Other than that, I don't think it hits anything in the deck. So I don't bring it in versus Aurora, which means because we only have 11 other cards in the sideboard plan, we do have to bring something in from the other sideboard plan, being the Aura sideboard plan. First thing here, I said 8 reds at the top here. It's not actually 8 reds, it's 5 reds and 3 yellows, but in my mind, yellows are just reds. They don't enable Transcend, they don't pitch nicely into Phantasmaclasm or Spectral Manifestations. So to me, these are 8 reds and 3 blues. We use this sideboard plan against Wizards, Illusionists, Guardians, Florian. Whenever we bring in Cosmo, we bring in all of these cards. Etchings and Coalescence are actually good with Refractor as well. Coalescence is much less good with Refractor than it is with Cosmo. It's mostly just there to make the Spectral Shield to give us more defense. Can easily be a 1-card 4 or 5 if we have a Spectral with a couple counters, which is good enough. We're not really expecting it to do more than that. If I am playing basically any matchup where I don't need to use the gloves for AB, I will bring in Etchings and Coalescence because of how nicely Astral Etchings works with the gloves. Mirror Guy and Waxing Spectre are pretty bad with Refractor. I don't ever bring them in when I'm playing Refractor, except for maybe New. We need to go pretty low on blues versus New. We have to take out Spears, we have to take out Levels, we have to take out Enigma Chimera. That leaves us with not that many blues main deck. So I will sometimes bring in Mirror Guy, but I'm not happy about it. Another option is just to play Cosmo into New, which is obviously the way most people do it, which is definitely not a bad plan. I think either way the matchup is favored, whether you're playing Refractor or Cosmo. And that's the deck. Those are my 80 cards. Last thing I want to talk about is some other options that you can put in the deck instead of some of the things I put in. You can play yellow manifestations. That's a 2-card 8, just one less value than the red manifestations. Still puts on that pressure of they have to attack you or you'll attack them again with that same spectral. But it blocks 2. And it's fine for red manifestations to block 2, but as you're adding more block 2s to the deck, you end up with more and more hands that can't protect your auras. So I draw the line at red manifestations. That makes the cut, the yellow one doesn't. Yellow one's fine though. I would not play the blue. The blue is just a chi that costs more. You have to spend the 1 card on the blue manifestations and pitch a card to play it. I would not play blue manifestations. You can play Scar for a Scar. Definitely sees a lot of play in other Enigma decks. Card seems great. I'm just valuing the 3 block on red spears over that. Could switch it around. Might be correct to play Scar for a Scar. And then last option for offense is second 10 of Chi Wind. It's almost exactly like a Spectral Prowler, but bigger. It costs 3 more, and it attacks for 3 more. Biggest issue with second tenant of Chi Wind is that it doesn't work with already transcended Chi. If I draw it second cycle together with a Chi that I already transformed, it just doesn't work. It doesn't have go again, whereas Spectral Prowler does. Spectral Prowler also just works with any spectrals left from last turn. So I think Spectral Prowler is definitely the stronger card, but if you want more of that effect, second 10 of Chi Wind is what I would use. Lastly, here's some options for defense. Waning Vengeance is definitely a card that's worth talking about a little bit. If we use Waning Vengeance on our opponent's turn with Footsteps, we get 1 block from Footsteps, 3 ward from Waning Vengeance itself, 1 ward later from the Spectral Shield that it made, but we're assuming that doesn't die yet, and then also 5 damage from that Spectral, assuming we have Tunic Counter. So if we have Tunic Counter, that's a 2-card 10. If we don't have Tunic Counter, then that's a 3-card 10. Those are decent numbers, at least. I don't currently play it in my deck because of how inflexible it is, because of the fact it's in no block. You could also play it with the blue on your own turn as a 2-card 8, attacks for 5, defense for 3. You're probably not getting the Spectral when it dies because we're just not pitching on our opponent's turn that much. Definitely experiment with it, see if you're able to line it up. If you're able to line it up, it turns into maybe the best 2-card play in the deck. If not, it could be super awkward as a no block that you have to use another card to even get it to prevent 3 damage. So I'm not currently running it. That All You Got is a very powerful option. Great into Aura, blocks the sword cleanly. Great into Assassin, blocks the daggers cleanly. I just don't have room for it right now. I'm gonna maybe try taking out the Fate for scenes and putting in a couple of That All You Gots. We'll see. Definitely a decent option. I wouldn't give anyone any trouble for running that in their deck. Calming Breeze is interesting. I decided not to play it because we're already playing 3 Shelter from the Storm. In my mind, if I just play more 0-for-4 defense reactions, I get to use Shelter from the Storm for its instant ability more often. I block for 4 with other defense reactions, and I prevent 3 with Shelter from the Storm. Calming Breeze is definitely solid. The fact that you can play it from Arsenal, unlike Shelter from the Storm, which you can only use as a D-react from Arsenal, is definitely an upside. Just can't fit in that many defensive tools. We need to be able to board them out for the matchups where they don't work. Sigil of Solace has always been a good card in Refractor. We struggle to spend our whole hand, so the fact that Sigil of Solace is an instant, just straight up gives us 3 value, no matter what the board state, no matter if we have an action point, is important, is valuable. It's been in my deck before. Maybe it deserves to come back. We'll see. And then lastly, we have Battlefront Bastion Blue. I saw some Florian decks are playing it recently, including the Florian deck by Tetsuya Kanishi. I'm going to try it out. I tried out at my armory this week, and it didn't go that well, but might be worth a little bit more testing. And that's it. So thank you all for watching. Again, my name is Nitan Avivi. Feel free to watch the rest of our content here on Enlightened Mike, and if you want to reach out to me about the deck or about Enigma in general or anything else, feel free to do so. My Discord link is Nitan King. Just shoot me a message, I'll be happy to chat about this. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.